I am just across the border here in Michigan, up from the Chicago area after a drop last night. I am on the water of Lake Michigan right now. It's kind of early in the day. I actually got to look at my watch. I got another short load, but I can't pick it up here for a couple of hours. It's one of those weird companies that don't let you pick up early, so I've got a few hours to burn. And I thought I'd make this video, and I wanted to go down by the water. And there's a cute little boat going by right here. I spent the night at a rest area last night. Ran my air conditioner until about midnight, got up and found out the temperature had dropped enough that I could shut it off and just ventilate. I have a new pet peeve, flies. For some reason, flies like getting in my van, and I don't understand where they're coming from. I don't have anything in here to attract them. You can open every door, every window, and they just stay, which is ridiculous. But anyway, that's a pet peeve for another day. So right now, I'm just burning time. This is a marina. This is, I can't remember the name of it, but I tried to go out to the beach line and set up my little stand that I have, but the wind is blowing, and when the wind's blowing, it eats on the microphone. And from where the sun is, I'm trying to shoot out over the water, and the problem with that is the screen is going to be in the sun, and my shadow is going to be on it, and the wind, this didn't work. So I walked about 150 yards out there, and now I walked 150 yards back, and now we're doing a filming from inside the vehicle again. So that's what this marina is. The topic I wanted to bounce off of today just kind of popped into my head. Wannabes. And you will find them in every aspect of your life. People claiming experience, expertise, or a background in something they've never done or never been involved in. And sometimes they do it just to get street cred. Hey, Toothless. They'll claim this background or experience in something they've never done because they want street cred or they want a job they're not qualified for. The glyceride. Where is this? I'm just across the border into Michigan from the Chicago area. I came around on 94, and there's a rest area just across the Michigan line, and I dialed up the only closest beach, so I went straight west and found this little beach. It's the only road I can get to the water. All right, Toothless. Well, like I said, I thought this was just a fun place to film. I actually went down to the beach line, but the wind's blowing just enough that it's going to affect the microphone, and the sun is going to make it where I can't see the screen, and so I'm just sitting in my van now. So anyway, the topic is wannabes, and again, you're going to meet them everywhere, and somebody will go to college for a semester to drop out, and what is the name of this town? Let me look that up. It's I-94 coming out of Chicago, and you go around the east side of Lake Michigan, and you cross the border into Michigan, and there's like a rest area on the right, a welcome center. And you pull off of the welcome center, and I got on the map and pulled right back on again, and it does like the next exit, like half a mile up, and you go straight east to the water, and it's a beach. Let me see if I can get the name on this beach I'm at, if this will show it. I don't know if the GPS. Turn on Whitaker Street. Yeah, there's some kind of marina. I don't know the name. It's on the other side. But every once in a while you see a boat go by. It's kind of nice, and the sun's behind me, which is cool. In business, you'll have people falsify their resume and falsify their experience. In aviation, a new pilot will fluff up his resume and spread out a little bit of information over 2 pieces of paper and try to act like they've got more than they do. A lot of people will apply for a job. Hey, Mr. Indian, Rudger, what's up? And see, I can read that. And people will go get a job based on a degree they don't have. There have been cases where people have been teachers for decades, and then they find out they've never gone to school and their credentials are falsified. That's getting normal. There was I live near Houston, and there is Indian Army. All right, that's cool. There was a woman who was in the HR department, and she would track down people's fake credentials or fake resumes and their certificates and look for all the paperwork at the schools. And this woman had 2 separate bachelor's degrees, which is how she got the job. And then somebody took a critical look at her and found out she had a GED. So the person running around pointing fingers, the hardest and the loudest, was the one faking it the worst. So, and then of course she claimed victimhood, and it was bizarre. But one of the biggest places you'll bump into wannabes is in the military, or people who think they were in the military, or whatever job they had in the military wasn't cool enough, so they modify what they did. And this is not a modern phenomenon. This has been going on forever. People taking credit for things they've never done and events they didn't participate in. The American Civil War ended. Really, Indian Army, that's cool. The American Civil War ended in 1865. Soon after, the forces from both sides started holding reunions. Ooh, I hear a train go by. They start having reunions, to catch up with the people you fought with. And as time marched on, the Northern Union and the Confederate actually started having their reunions together, which is kind of cool, I thought. They kind of reconciled, and they both sides acknowledged they were a part of something big. And then they had these reunions every few years, and rolling into the early 1930s, the numbers started dropping off. I mean, if you just do the math, there's not as many of these guys around. They're getting old. Well, and then suddenly in the late 1930s, there was a huge resurgence, and all of a sudden, all these old guys started piling in, going to oh yeah, I fought with the so-and-so. And these guys, these were the wannabes. 9165, I don't know what that means. All of a sudden, when the numbers started going up, what you had, here goes the crowd, is the people who could say yes or no. Sheila, I like that. My wife's name is Sheila. That's funny, but it's spelled differently. And they wanted to be part of that, but the people who were there that would look at them and say, "Hey, who are you? I've never seen you before." They're gone. So about the time those people were gone, all of a sudden this new influx. And these people hadn't been in the military. They didn't fight in the Civil War, but they wanted the accolades. They wanted the attention. They wanted the street cred to say, "Yeah, I was this and I was that." So that's not a new concept. During World War II, one of the most notoriety of the battles in the Pacific was the Battle of Iwo Jima. I mean, there's other huge battles and other important battles, but Iwo Jima was the one that kind of caught the public's attention. And soon after the war ended, anybody who was in the Marines during the war would say, "Oh yeah, I was in Iwo Jima. Yeah, Stolen Bower, exactly. Oh, yeah, I was at Iwo Jima." Every Marine that ever served in the Marine Corps was at Iwo Jima. And a buddy of mine said, "Yeah, he had a great uncle who did the same thing, as a kid. Oh yeah, Iwo Jima this, Iwo Jima that, blah 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 blah." And then you do a little research. He spent the whole war in New Jersey. He didn't even go overseas. But that stuff's been going on. That's been going on quite a long time. In the Vietnam War, the one major set piece, Mad James Lives Life. Hey, James. Yeah, there's boats out here. This is a marina. I don't know. It's on the other side. I'm in a little park here. I don't even know the name of it. But I'm here. It's on Lake Michigan. That says the Lake Michigan Yacht Club. And so the one major set-piece battle that happened during the entire Vietnam War was Khe Sanh. It was an air base somewhere in like 6 or 7 North Vietnamese divisions encircled it, and they said, "Okay, we're gonna take this out," and they never did. And because of the policies of the war, which were ridiculous, they defended it and they defeated the NVA, and then a few weeks later they abandoned the air base, which that's again makes no sense, but. A guy that was there, because there's only a few hundred people on the base, and a guy that was there said, "When the war is over, I'm going to open a bar." And he goes, "Just for Khe Sanh survivors." And he said that once you know every stool is full, somebody's lying. Was his comment. Korean War had the same problem. You had the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir, where the military moved way into North Korea, and then they're just little fingers, and then they got encircled by a huge Chinese army, and then they had to fight their way out. And again, anybody who was in Korea, oh yeah, I was in the Chosin. Yeah, you're right. Hide behind. That's cool. Yeah, 90% never fired a shot. And the funny thing is when somebody starts a conversation with, back when I was a Navy SEAL, immediately you know, if these guys that they were either in the military and they had a job that wasn't exciting, or they never spent one hot second. I worked with a Vietnamese guy who was a survivor of the Saigon evacuation. He was 5 years old. Oh yeah, the Saigon evacuation. If you look at the photographs of that, it was April of '75 when they were evacuating, there's a famous picture of a helicopter on top of the embassy with a line of people walking up to it. That was actually an Air America helicopter. That wasn't even a military aircraft. That was that little CIA operation they had going. But where was I? Yeah, the people that want to talk military stuff that probably were never in service. His name was Tim Kennedy, that when he was 5. Okay. They're always a special forces guy. Nobody was a mechanic. Nobody was a supply puke. Nobody was in communications. Everybody was some kind of green seal, ninja, Jedi, secret warrior or some stuff. Basically, out here in the real world, if you've ever bumped into somebody and somewhere early in the conversation they say, "Oh yeah, I was a Navy SEAL," they're lying to you, because a Navy SEAL is not going to tell you that. That's not going to come up in a conversation for, "Okay, Eric, you're a Vietnam vet. That's cool. Right on." Delta Force, yeah, Delta Force again. If somebody comes up and says, "Yeah, I was," that's not what they say. First of all, they don't say, that's not their phrase. You have to talk to them for a while, and what they're going to say is, "I was an operator." Were you a Delta Force Green SEAL? I served in Nam with Chuck Norris. Yeah, I served. I was in the Army. I started off as a tanker, and I bamboozled my way into flight school, and I got to be one of the last guys that flew the Cobra attack helicopter. 8 medals of honor. Yeah. And again, it's all about street cred. All these guys, back when, and then you have to look at the person. You have to look at the person saying this. You got a guy who's making up a scenario. The guy's 37 years old. Me, I served 86 and then got Bill Clinton out in 93. And this guy's got a 25-year-old smashed up car, lives in a rotten motorhome, has had menial jobs his whole life, but yet thinks he was in the special forces. And I was like, dude, you're just not oozing off that I did that. And what they're looking for is they want to be important. My dad was military. I was born in the military. I know what you're saying, brother. I hear you. Yeah, I mean, that's just it's bizarre when you meet these people, and as soon as if that's like the first thing they say in the conversation, you just roll your eyes. And sometimes these people will stand up in front of a group of people and start running their mouths. And I've called some people out on that, and I've done it publicly because, like I said, I was one of the very last guys that got to fly the old Cobra attack helicopter in service. So when somebody starts claiming, "Oh yeah, I flew those," what they're banking on is they're not going to bump into anybody that did. You're not going to meet somebody that can shoot you full of holes with your storyline, and it happens. And there's a lot. Like I said, if you're going through your life, somebody says, "Oh yeah, back when I was a Navy SEAL," they weren't, because they're not going to tell you. That's just how the world goes around. I am also a cannonballer. I'm retired. I'm not in that anymore. But I've done the cannonball run. In 2020, I actually broke the solo record by 29 minutes back then. And I've done a podcast. It's on my playlist somewhere under Cannonball. There's a little bit of filming about it. I have talked about it. And in 22, I did a podcast. And every once in a while, because I know, well, I don't really anymore, but I knew all the people that are in that genre of entertainment or motorsport. I knew the people, and if you take every person that's ever done a cannonball successfully, and successfully would be defined as you started at the beginning and you ended at the finish line and you made it there without breaking down or giving up or getting arrested. You're talking a total since 1971, you're talking a total of maybe 250 people. So you don't bump into a lot of those guys and they don't talk about it. And of those, the numbers that could say at some point they claimed a record, they actually have a record, and the records are basically three categories, which is the team, which is the overall, solo, and then motorcycle. But outside of that, there's people that start claiming records like, oh, I had the fastest diesel, I had the fastest car that left on a Tuesday, oh, I had the fastest car with a missing hubcap. People start trying to break it down to smaller and smaller levels. Somebody did a three-wheeler and someone said an open top, and it's basically team, overall, solo, and motorcycle are the three categories. And I did the solo one, which I held for, I think 4 years. And I think I'm embellishing my stories. Well, it's documented, and I'm on the list. But I held it for like 3 or 4 years, and then some guy in 24 just like blew it out of the water. I mean, he wasn't even close. He blew it out of the water. But you start talking to people, and you start meeting. It's usually a younger person. Going, yeah, we were doing the cannonball. Well, how long do you think it's going to take somebody who's actually done that? It can shoot you full of holes. And I was at a classroom, and some guy started me and my buddies did the can. He's a college age kid, which is not when you don't do it at that age. If you get caught driving at ludicrous speed and you're 45 years old, you're going to get in trouble. If you're caught doing ludicrous speed at 22 years old, you're going to be in a slightly different category of pain because you just don't have the experience to be out there doing this. And it was some college kids running their mouth about how they had broken the cannonball run record. And, he's just playing the odds that who's going to know any better. Well, I had, and the guy that owns the record, the team, his name is Doug Tabbitt. And he's on YouTube. He's got a channel called Switch Cars and Switchcast. I did a podcast on there. I'm in the system here. If you guys dig around, I'm in there somewhere. And I stood up, and people were asking questions, and I'm thinking, the odds of there being, because there can't be 25 record holders that ever existed, and I'm one of them, and this guy's claiming the odds of us being in the room together. So I said, okay. So I started asking him questions that only a cannonballer would know, and he couldn't answer any of them. And then I called Doug and put the phone up to the microphone. I said, hey, Doug, I'm standing in this room with this clown telling everybody how he broke the cannonball run record, and you could hear him talking back. And yeah, that guy walked off the stage and left. Just, come on, man. Come on. No, Purple Mr. White OG. No, actually, I'm not embellishing anything. I'm who I am. I served in the Army from 86 to 93. I started out as a tanker. I went to flight school. I spent 35 years as a commercial helicopter pilot. I've talked about this before. And there's some videos on here of me flying and doing stuff, but I'm no longer in aviation as of October. I don't have my medical anymore, so I'm now driving a van. And I've flown military, the Gulf oil and gas industry. I did tours. I was Fox 26 in Houston, and my last job was flying the medical stuff. And I really didn't like that. It was a pain in the ass. But as you go through life, you're just going to meet people, and there's no shortage of them. Oh, I got flies. I don't know what's going on with my van. Oh, dude is well off. No, actually not. No, I have the aviation world is feast or famine. That's why you work in different aspects. You do good, and then everything shuts down, and you kind of flail around. I'm not overloaded with debt. I don't have any debts. I just don't have a bunch of money floating around out there. But my house is paid for, and everything I have is paid off. But like COVID killed us. We were flying. I was doing the Grand Canyon at the time, the Grand Canyon tours, and when COVID hit, most of our passengers are from overseas, and a big chunk of them are from mainland China. And there's Grand Central. So all aviation stopped from overseas, and the tour industry died. So I did little side jobs. I worked at a body shop for a couple of years. I actually came out here and did this job, what I'm doing right now, which is expediting. Yeah, it is a beautiful view. I tried to go out by the water and film, but I couldn't get the sun in the right place to see, and the wind was blowing, so it was messing up the microphone. I just came back and got in the van. Yeah, this is a little beach. I'm in a park, and that is a marina. It says the Lake Michigan Yacht Club. There's a sign over there, and I am just across the border in. No, I'm actually in Michigan right now. I was over by Gary, Indiana last night, and I got a load coming out of a town right behind me called Stevensville going to Detroit. So I drove up Interstate 94 along the lake, and right on this side of the border of Michigan, there's a rest area, and I whipped in. And then I looked on Waze, and it said, okay, you give me, my buddy just got approved for, I'm in the process. I don't have a disability. I am banged up. And I didn't, Mr. Water 91, yeah, I didn't want to make a stink out of it while I was flying commercially, because if you're flying around with a flight physical and claiming military disability, it causes a problem. And a whole bunch of guys got caught in that in the last few years. So I just filed here right after I stopped flying. Right when my medical went away, I filed, and it's going through an attorney, and I'm going to see how that plays out. My knees are shot. I got them mangled. My back is shot. I have a bunch of little things wrong with me. Michigan is a border state. Yeah, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, here in Canada, is up there. I've never been to the UP. Never been up that far, but I've been all over the state. It's actually a nice state. I like it here. For people who don't live in Michigan, my brain says Detroit. You know, you think Michigan, Detroit. Well, there's a lot more to Michigan than Detroit, and it is nice up here. I have not stuck my toe in that water, but it looks cold, by the way. Well, I don't know. What was being a pilot like in 2021? I was flying in the Gulf starting in 2000, and 911 happened, and it shut everything down. They fly helicopters around out there, and they bounce from the oil platforms. You bounce from platform to platform, and when they shut it down, everything just stopped. And they finally started letting us fly again out there, and it was really weird. They wanted you to file a flight plan to give a list of where you were going based on a grid coordinate and how long you were going to be there, and so they could track you. And I said, dude, that's like making a list of what toys your child is going to play with, in what order, and for how long. You can't do that. But within the limits, that's what we did. And then he had to call the FAA and give them grid coordinates. And then one day I called, and they said, okay, you can stop. They said, just go back to doing what you were doing. I was like, all right, cool. And when you flew out there, this may have changed because I haven't been out there since 2014. Wow, that girl's got a lot of tattoos. Wow. Anyway, companies fly out there, and you have a transponder code on your aircraft. Now, every aircraft in your company has the same code, so they can figure out who you are. And if you go on Amazon and put in, I've written some ebooks, and they're all about drug smuggling, because I know aviation, and I know people that used to be in the business. And most books on drug smuggling in the air are from like the 1970s. So I wrote a series of fictional books based on today's technology. One of them involves flying in the Gulf of Mexico, or the Gulf of America, I guess they call it now. But if you go onto Amazon, and you can get on call it a playlist, put in the search window, Confessions of an Amateur Drug Pilot, and the book will pop up, and that'll link you to my other 4 or 5. I don't remember. I wrote them years ago. They're amateurish, but they're fun. People enjoy them. But it talks about using transponder codes in the Gulf and using their system and whatnot out there. That was a fun time. They got some Canadian geese out here swimming around in this water. I have my windows open right now, and it's blowing through here. It's kind of nice. There's a true story. A bunch of Delta guys were flying low commercial, or when the towers got hit, the pilot called for military assistance to guard the plane. True story. I don't know. I don't know what was going on over there. You may be 100% right on that. Yeah, I don't know that. Yeah, yeah, that was 9/11 was weird. And the thing is, I have this channel, and when you're putting out content like this, and I hate saying this word, but oh, I'm an influencer. I'm not an influencer. I just put out content. I just do it for fun. I have a page called YouTube Studio, and it shows where your viewers are coming from, and what country. Most United States, some Canada. I've got people from South Korea, India, South Africa, Australia, Germany. It's just weird. It breaks it down, but it also breaks it down by age. And I have 0.0 people that are below 18 years old on this channel, which is kind of cool. And it goes like 19 to 25, 25 to 40, 40 to 50. It kind of jumps like that. And the higher up you get in age, the more the percentages, the numbers. And I like that because you talk about 9/11 to a teenager, and you might as well be talking about the Revolutionary War. They don't, it doesn't mean anything to them. So it's kind of nice having people on here that are my age, because I'm getting ready to turn 57 next month, and it's nice to know there's people on here the same age. Yeah, Special Forces guys. Wow. And in the movies, the Special Forces guys are these big, muscular. Oh, wow, Purple Wig. You're 27. You're one of the younger guys. There's very few people your age. But if you watch TV, the Special Forces guys are these giant, muscle-bound knuckle draggers. And I've known some in the military. They're Green Berets, and they were all relatively small people. I'd say 5'6", 130, 140 pounds. They were not that large, because they run around and they need to blend in. And if you're this 6'5" musclehead, you're not going to blend in really well. And what a lot of people don't understand in the Army, that's where I was, the Green Berets are not run around in the bushes and kill the bad guy with a toothpick people. They're actually trainers. Their job is to go behind the lines and organize a fighting force with the local population. That's kind of what their job is. Redbeard, my bosses were at the convention in Las Vegas during 9/11. Took them 4 days to get out. All transport hubs. Oh yeah, everything got shut down. Everything got shut down. Aviation they pulled the plug, and every pilot knew it. And some clown, not far from my house, he was a flight instructor, and he just decided, well, that doesn't apply to me, so I'm going to keep doing my flight instructing, but I'm just going to stay at the airfield. The airport right there. So he started taking off and doing traffic patterns, and yeah, he got jumped. He got jumped by the military. I did one of my flights offshore. I came back in and landed, and I filed it like you're supposed to, and it was in a Jet Ranger, so I'm going like 85 knots, going in slow motion, and we flew about 100 miles, and I was at 3,500 feet. I'm easy to see, and I'm flying in a straight line. We flew up high because it was real hot. Remember that time? We flew really, really high up, because once you get over about 1,500 feet, the temperature drops. You get 2.5 degrees per 1,000 feet. So you get up there, and all of a sudden it cools off, from the hot, sticky weather. We flew a little over an hour, and we descended into Freeport, Texas, circled to land, and an F-16 went over my head about 200 feet. It's looking down at me, circled around and flew off. And I'm like, dude, that's not much of an intercept. I'm on a flight plan. I'm up here where you can see me, and I'm going in slow motion. Come on. But he looked at me, and then he left. Flew off. Okay, 34. Tried to join Army like my whole family, but got denied due to medical records. Sadly, my health was a problem. Yeah, that's a thing. I joined, again, 86, and back then, one of the rules were you had to have a high school diploma, which, okay. And then later years, you had to have, they said, oh no, you could go in with a GED. They changed that. And nowadays, the current generation of people, they're having a hard time filling the slots because people are just horribly out of shape. Horribly out of shape. And that's a problem. The fatness of people. That, most people are old enough to know this. Everybody getting fat didn't start till like the early 90s. I mean, watch any video shot in the 80s, up to the late 80s, everybody's kind of the same shape. But once you got into the 90s, all of a sudden everybody started ballooning up, and I think it had to do with the food. They started, it's all processed food and whatnot. I think that had a lot to do with it. But also everybody started getting into electronic stuff. And versus actually, physically doing things, you electronically do it, which that's not helping. God, this breeze is really nice. I spent last weekend down in Huntsville, Alabama. I got stuck down there, and it is hot and sticky down there. Jeez. So I'm going to be hanging out. I'd rather hang out up here. A nice marina. These boats across here, one says the name is Wiped Out. I'll tell the North Star. I can't read me on there. Anywho. Think about expediting this job when you're waiting. You're either moving or you're moving with a load or you're waiting. So right now I'm just waiting and I'm enjoying this. I was flipping through a magazine years ago, and they used to do logging up in Canada, and they were back 150 years ago, 140 years ago, and they would float the logs down the river down here to the mills in Michigan, in the Chicago area, and these big, huge, basically a giant raft of logs would be floating along, and people are standing on top of them, riding the currents. And I'm like, you guys are insane. And about 10% of them would get, the water would soak into them, hence the word waterlogged, and they would sink in the lake. About 10%. And here, starting in the 1990s, people started going underwater and finding these logs and pulling them out and drying them out and using them for projects. So that's like the ultimate recycling. At least there's no crocs or sharks in the nice water you got there. Crocs like the shit. That's where my brain went. Yeah, same way. No, we talk about crocodiles now. This is freshwater. I believe the Great Lakes are the biggest reserve of freshwater in the world. And there goes a guy on a jet ski. I think that's his daughter, based on her appearance. I think that's a daughter sitting behind him. They're in the no wake zone, going out. And then that other family's coming back in again. Yeah, this is a nice area. When I got off the road, off the 94, the highway over here, you go a half mile into town, and it's got that really homey, really nice feel to it. You look around, the businesses are like old style but been modernized with the architecture, and it's just, man, that's a really nice little area. I bet it ain't cheap to live here, though. Yeah, I bet this is pricey. I think Austria has kangaroos, though. Yeah. Yeah, we don't. I've been to Australia. I've actually had people on here. I was doing a stream late at night. I was going from Ann Arbor, Michigan to Cleveland, because this type of work up here is 24 hours a day. You run days and nights. I like running nights personally. And I went on at 11:30 at night, and I had people from Australia, New Zealand, and Germany jump on board. Does everyone in the USA carry? No. Legally, in a lot of states, you can. If they're carrying, you don't know it. That you can open carry, you can conceal carry, but people don't walk around flashing guns at people. Well, most people don't. So when some thug walks into a restaurant or a bar and pulls out a gun and starts waving it around and says, "I'm going to rob the place," and you don't know who's going to pull something out. And it's happened in Houston here not too long ago. Some clown went to a restaurant, had a security camera, and he started waving a gun around, demanding everybody's wallet. He turned his back, and a guy pulled the gun out, and that was the end of that. So yeah, not a good idea. Not a good idea. You don't know who's what, and firearms are a thing here. People like them. It used to be an Equator. This was? Oh, I don't know. Your sugar and white pines weighed almost 50 pounds per cubic yard. Butt logged were used sinkers. They need to be head to light lighter. Wow. Loose cannons. Yeah, not necessarily. People like to say firearms is the problem. There's like 300 million firearms in the United States in private hands. And you're no, I mean, if they were a problem, you'd know it. With 300 minutes, do I carry? I don't mess with firearms at work. I don't. It's no, because I'm jumping through different state lines. I'm going on to plants, and my vehicle is actually registered to go into Area 51. I even have stickers on the side of it. So you don't want to start carrying weapons around causing problems. I don't feel the need. I have things on board I can use to protect myself, but I don't carry firearms when I'm out and about. That's not the way we do things. People think it's like the Wild West. It's not. Every once in a great while, especially in Texas, you'll see somebody wearing a firearm on their hip, and it's not like, oh my God, call the police. They carry. They're allowed to. They're allowed to. Any sound weapons? No, I don't have that high tech. I don't have that high tech stuff. I don't invest in that. Yeah, but there's something, like I said, in the term of 300 million. They didn't show us the aliens. I picked up here. Okay, I'll give you a war story behind this. I picked up a box. We call it a job box. It's like a armored toolbox, and it had a power plug to it. And they said, make sure this stays powered. And I don't remember where I got it. I think it was in Texas, and I plugged it into my 12 volt. They said to keep. I don't know if I was keeping refrigeration or I don't know what it was doing, but it plugged in, it had power, and I drove they gave me an address, and it was Area 51, and they pulled up to a gate, and a vehicle pulled up, and the guy said, follow me. He didn't look in my vehicle, he didn't really check me, but the vehicle had been pre-registered, and I had one get behind me, and we drove into the airport. What they do at Area 51 is they test aircraft. That's where the stealth fighter and the stealth bomber were all tested. And we drove, and I went into a hangar building, and I had these two vehicles went in, and they unplugged and replugged, took the thing out, and they escorted me back out, and they didn't look in my vehicle. I mean, they didn't ask me anything. I already have the stickers on here. That was a weird experience. But the strangest experience I have ever had as an expediter, when they give you a load, if it's a direct delivery, they do the math on the ETA based on 50 miles an hour. So it's 1,000 miles and you have to take it direct. They'll say, okay, 20 hours. You have to get there or whatever. And I did a direct to Bath, Pennsylvania that was due at 7 in the morning. And I rolled in there. I used to have flat wraps, but the whole loads were bound. Yeah. Like I said, they did that that's what I'm saying. They pull those ones out of the bottom of the ocean and the bottom of the lake, and they started using them. And it's like it was a thing. Everybody wanted one for their house or their construction job. Electronic harassment devices? No, I have some pepper spray and I have a couple other things, and I've actually had to use that one time. But I got to the delivery at this really weird looking. It was some kind of electronics firm with a really tall fence, and it's 2 in the morning, and I pull up and I hit the button just to see if anybody's there, because if they're there, I want to drop it off and be done with it, right? So I hit the button, and this female voice answers and says, may I help you? And I was like, well, I have a delivery. And she goes, oh, okay, come on in. I'm like, oh, cool. She said, go around back, where the docks are and whatnot. So I push the button, and the gate opens, and I drive by, and I can see the entrance, the atrium. No Y2K devices. And inside, about 25 feet from the door, there's a desk, and I can see a woman from about, I don't know, mid-chest up, looking at me as I go by, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? I drive around back, and I'm back there for a while, and nothing happened. So I got out of my van, I walked back around the front, and I am 25 feet from this woman, and I push a little speaker box, and I said, hey, there's nobody back there. Can you, shake the bushes? And she said, okay. She's looking at me. She said, okay, I'll do it. And I went back around, and then the door opens, and the guy came out with a forklift and unloaded whatever it was. And I asked the guy, why do you have a secretary here at 2 o'clock in the morning? What is the purpose of this? And the guy looks at me. He goes, did you talk to her? I said, yeah, twice. He goes, follow me. And he has his little key pass thing, and he swipes doors. We walk out front, and we come out next to this woman, and she's sitting at a desk. She was wearing a blue skirt. Her hands are crossed on the desk. There's nothing on the desk. There's no phone. There's no computer. There's no paperwork. It's nothing. Walk around, look down. It was a robot. It was a robot that was looking at me. And the hair moved, and she blinked, and I would move, and her eyes would follow me, and her head would tilt. Whoo! The guy says you can't touch the skin because the oils on your skin will cause. Yeah, I was freaky, and he said that it's on 24 hours a day. The boss can turn to her and ask her any question that you could dig up in the company files, and that person, this whatever the name of it was, could answer. He's like, what were the quarterly reports back from 1994, whatever, and they'll rattle off that information. He said she's also a super Alexa. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you ask her pretty much anything she can answer. I said, okay, what was the lineup of the 1935 World Series? And this robot person looking at me started rattling off names with their jersey numbers. I mean, just boom, 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 boom. I said, okay, I'm out of here. I'm out. I didn't have my phone on me. Should have filmed that. And then about a year later, you start seeing that. You start seeing they're talking about these robot people. They're mixing into businesses. But that was like a year later. Let's see. Why I lived on Takawana. Everybody, is that Japan? Takikawa, and U.S. Navy test pilot flew out of Area 50. He didn't see any of the aliens. Yeah, that's not what Area 51 is. That's just a test. Again, the Gulf War. The Gulf War was when everybody found out about the F-117 stealth fighter, remember? Which, by the way, is retired from service. It's considered obsolete. That was 1991. That's the first time anybody heard about the stealth fighter, which was more of a light attack plane. But here, a few years ago, they had one at an air show. There's video of this, and it was flying around. It pulled some heavy G's, and it had a fluttering wingtip. You've probably seen this. And the wingtip came off, and the aircraft, he lost control. The guy ejected, and the plane landed and got destroyed. The guy lived. It was not the end of the world, but the aircraft got destroyed. The serial number on that airplane was from 1981, which means those things had been around 10 years in production before anybody ever knew about them. And that's where they tested them, is Area 51. Is this Groom Lake Air Force Base? That's where all that goes on, out of sight, out of mind. And if you're wondering where that comes from, the name Area 51, Nevada has something like 90% of the landmass of Nevada is government owned. If you look at a map of the United States and they break it down by, private land, state, federal, Nevada is 90% federal real estate. They literally own the whole place. And the areas that there's nothing out there. There's no roads, there's no towns. They literally made a grid coordinate, a big grid square of the map of the state, and they said, zip, zip, this is Area 47, this big block is Area 48, and then Area 51. It's just, that's where it happened to be located. That's where the name came from. The Nighthawks flew practice test bombing missions in the city of Las Vegas? That would be awkward. Oh, and if you ever go to Las Vegas, I talked about this the other day with somebody. There's a 737 at the airport. It's off-white color. It has a red stripe on the side of it. That is called the Jan. Their call sign is Janet, and that is the Jan flight that flies everybody to work from Vegas to Area 51 every day. The reason I know that is one of the pilots that I flew with up there doing tours was one of the pilots for that aircraft. He said, yeah, we run people up in the mornings and we come back at night. He said, it's just take on, 80, 90 people. They go in, they bring them back. It's a really short flight. It's too far to drive. Yeah, Janet. Well, they call it Janet Flight. I don't know about Janet Airlines, but they say Janet Flight is what he called it. And if you're on Freak, you'll hear him talk. But it's a 737 that parks completely away from the terminal buildings. Got a boat going by. Crestliner. Got a trolling motor on the front. He's got two engines, one in the water and one out. That's kind of cool. I'm not really a boat person. I guess if I lived on the water, I could turn into one. But in the meantime, I'm not a boat person. When I got here this morning, there was a dude walking around. Did you see any of the hangars? There was a whole. I was looking everywhere. I was looking, but there was a bunch of hangars and buildings there. But they drove me into a hangar. It had those scissor doors that kind of like pinch when they open up. It and they kind of pop out, and then they go back, and it was open, and we just drove in. I said, just follow me, and I went ducks in a row into this building, and they pulled it out with a little tiny electric forklift. They took out this box of, and then I never shut the engine off. And then we just drove back out the gate, and that was it. And they just escorted me front and rear. But they didn't ask for my ID. They didn't look in my van. I could have had 10 Al Qaeda in here. You know, they didn't even look. Got into trouble. No, I didn't get into trouble. We drove into a hangar. It was just an empty bay hangar. I don't know if that's so you can't see what's going on and it's from satellite or what, but we went in and went out. And like I said, they didn't ask for my ID. They didn't ask me. I had to show them the paperwork. Oh, you went in. You got in trouble. Yeah, that'll do it. You're not supposed to be there. And then here a week ago, I delivered a box of a crate of whatever, and to Waterloo, Iowa, to a John Deere plant. And that dude, boy, I had to get a coded security gate pass and a clip-on thing, and we got to get your number, and we got to look in your van. I'm delivering a box. And we go through all this paperwork, and I'm laughing at this guy going, this is a tractor factory in Waterloo, Iowa. You know, let's keep it real. They didn't arrest you. They just escorted you out. Is it true even military restricted? That airspace is restricted. I know that. They have it's probably what they call a TFR, a temporary flight restriction, but it's probably permanent. We were kids. Wow. You know, like you got all the way out there to get in there. Yeah, we never flew up in that area. When I was in Nevada, we never got anywhere near it. Yeah, this guy, look at this boat. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's making a racket. Look at this thing. Wow. You can hear that thing rumbling. The general showed up. Yeah, that boat's making a racket. Wow. That is completely out of place at this marina. Oh, you're talking about in Japan. I thought you were talking about you went into the hangars at Area 51. That's hard to get to. That area. Do you remember that we're going to storm Area 51 garbage that happened a few years ago? Where thousands and thousands of people were going to go, and oh, they can't stop us all. And then a few hundred actually showed up, and I think 35 people ran to the gate, and the other guards just said, shut up. Be gone with you. Until you boys cannot be going around the base anymore, yeah? Yeah, you gotta leave that military stuff to the professionals. Like when I was we weren't flying one day and it was snowing. And I was at Fort Carson in Colorado Springs, and I was a warrant officer when I was flying. And we were out on the ramp on the ice having tug races. You know, the aircraft tugs. We're out racing them around the ramp with cones and slipping and sliding on the ice and just being idiots. Not around other aircraft, mind you, but just being idiots. Some people wandering by. Yeah, this is a beautiful area. It's calm out here. When I got here, there was a guy with that stupid leaf blower. The two MPs were not human. They were not very friendly. Yeah, we called the Army, we called them mud puppies. I think the name of their SP Shore Patrol, yeah, we called our MPs mud puppies when I was there. Back in the 80s, their quote-unquote police vehicles were Reliant K cars. Remember those? Little junk boxes. I don't think this video shows it, but let's get my finger up here. But way back here are some really fancy townhouses and condos and stuff. I bet that's premium dollar here on the water, and they look new, very decorative. And there's one right here. Right there's a fancy one. That one right there. You ever seen a video of that I don't even know what they call it. It's the one point on the North-South Korean border where they actually communicate. There's a light blue building, and the South Korean military, they have people who work it. And for the South Korean military to have that job, they have to be 6 feet tall, which is extremely unusual over there. And there was I've seen video of these guys. They stand like they're about to kick your ass. They spread their legs and they like hold fists at their sides and they bend their elbows back a little bit, and that's how they stand. They have a way of presenting, but they have to be over 6 feet tall. And there's those little blue buildings in the middle there. Threw a rock and hit something, everything echoed and vibrated. Oh, oh, the good old days. With this breeze, I got my door open and I got wind coming through here. That's really, really nice. Wow. This guy's getting ready to come back. There's a dude. He's just off frame to the right. He's got 2 fishing poles. He's been walking up and down, throwing lures in here for a while. But everywhere I've gone, when you're not driving in the van and it's hot, you stop. You can go into a rest area. You can go into a truck stop, into a driver's lounge, and hide, from the heat. But sometimes you can't, so you just open all the doors. You open the sliding door, and I open my back doors on the van. Gang members, there they go. And for some reason, every fly that ever lived wants to come and get in my van, and they want to stay. And I don't understand that. I mean, there's no food in here. It's not nasty. There's no dead bodies. Well, there's no dead bodies anymore. I think I cleaned that up. But there's really no reason for them to be in here, but they all come in here and stay. And you can open every door, every window, and let the wind blow through, and they stay. So at night, when I finally have to button up and go to sleep, I literally have to close everything, get the air conditioner going, and I get out a towel and I start killing flies. Yeah, they get emotional when you run around on military bases sometimes. Hear a funny sounding motorcycle. Sounds familiar. I'm looking in the mirror here. Hold on a sec. I own a scooter. I have a Bergman scooter I really enjoy, but before that I had a Ruckus, which is too small for my frame, but it sounds like that. Another boat going by. A little fishing boat. This guy in front of me doesn't realize he's the main character on the screen. So I'm doing a pickup here in 2 hours. It's just up the street. And I got to take it 200 miles, but it's not due till 7 o'clock tonight. So 200 miles in 7 hours. And it's one of those weirdo deals. I don't know why they do this, but you need to deliver it at the time they want it, not early. So this is a lazy day. That's why I came over here to do this. I enjoy sitting, seeing stuff like this. A lot of downtime. Yeah, there's all these little towns out here, you see. You got to get off the main drag to find them. And they're kind of nice. And I can hear a train. Mama loves trains. Today's the 23rd or the 24th, and I'm going to be out here until about the 20th of August, and then I'm going to New York, and my wife's flying out, and we're going to go to the family farm, and I'll film that. It's been in the family since the origins of the universe, and I'm going to enjoy that. They have trains out there and vineyards, and the water's real close by, and I'll see if I can get down by the water there. That's Lake Erie. See if I can get down by the water. And out their kitchen window at night, you're by it's New York, but it's by the Pennsylvania border, and it's by Lake Erie. It's right up there in that little corner. And as you look north across the lake at night, you can see a lighthouse on the Canadian side. It's a place called Long's Point. You can find it on a map. It's a little finger in Lake Erie on the kind of towards the west side of the lake. But look into Canada, you see that little finger? That's the lighthouse. You can see the flash of the light at night, which is kind of cool. Got to go catch up tomorrow, maybe go on. Yeah, if I'm out here driving around, I like to live stream because the screen on here is usually moving and you're seeing terrain, and people jump in from other countries to see, and I'll tell you where I am. I'll repeat it multiple times, and you can see what it looks like in that area. People like that. That's normally what I do. This is the first time I've ever shot video sitting still. This is a new thing, and I don't shoot me because I'm nothing to look at. I'm an old fat guy. It's just get to see what's going on. But yeah, with the sun behind us, this is beautiful. All right, take care. I'll be on here. Like I said, I'll be on. especially like to be on at night because this transit van has giant headlights, and it has the big bucket headlights. And when you get out in the middle of nowhere, you can use the high beams. The retired couple, you get to use the high beams, and you can see some pretty neat stuff. I like to dodge toll roads out of principle, and there's a highway that goes through New York east-west. It's 86, and it goes out into the woods at night, and there is nothing out there. There are no towns, there's no power lines. It's just woods, and you're just cruising along on the interstate. All right, hey, enjoy listening to you. I've subbed. Hey, thanks. Yeah, I like this. Entertains me. It gives me something to do. I listen to audiobooks, I listen to music, and I run my mouth. That's kind of my daily thing. I enjoyed this view sitting here, and I thought other people might enjoy it also. We're at 56 minutes, and here at an hour, I'll probably cut this off. But I wanted people to enjoy this view right here. They say in photography, video, or still, it's called the golden hour. It's 1 hour up to 1 hour after sunrise and 1 hour before sunset. When the sun is hitting at an angle like this, it looks excuse me, it looks better. It looks more interesting, and I agree. I tried to do this on the coast. Like I said, the wind was blowing and the sun was in the wrong place, and my shadow was always getting in the way, so I just had to come back over here. I don't think you can hear it, but I can hear a train again. Tomorrow's Thursday at 7 minutes time. Oh, wow, that's right. You're on the other side of the world. Man, I keep forgetting that. Yeah, here it's coming up on 10 o'clock in the morning in this area. One thing about this job that throws me off is I keep jumping time zones. Excuse me. They keep saying, okay, pick up here, drop there, and I have to look at the map to figure out where the heck I am. Because I can't figure out what time zone I'm in. Wow. All right. I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to head up the road here. Oh, look at the walking by. She got a baby. Baby's getting a view of that. That's cool. All right. I'm going to cut this off. I'll be back on. If I get a load tonight, which they're sending me to, I'm going to be at 7 o'clock tonight. I deliver in Detroit. And Detroit is a 24-hour thing. And I have spent an entire night driving between Detroit and Toledo, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And getting paid quite well for it, coincidentally. And so that happens. But I like to film at night. I enjoy that. But I'll catch up with everybody later. Take care.